So now we're going to study polynomials, and we're going to start out with adding and subtracting polynomials. Okay, so simplify the following. So we have the polynomial 11x squared minus 8x, and then we're going to subtract the polynomial 4x squared minus 2x minus 7. So the first step is very similar to how we simplified equations and linear equations and things like that. We're going to distribute this minus. So we have 11x squared minus 8x and then minus 4x squared. But that minus is going to get distributed. So this will be a plus 2x and a plus 7. And then now, similar to how we were simplifying before, you're going to combine like terms. So you'll notice that we have terms that have x squared in them. So this term and this term are like terms. They both have x squareds. And so if we want to combine them, what we just have to do is combine their coefficients. So the coefficient 11 minus 4, what would we get? Well, we would have 7 x squareds after combining these two, right? Another way to see that is this is right here. Well, I mean, you could write it out as 11 minus 4 in parentheses if you wanted to, but you don't want to overcomplicate it. And then we have this term, which has an x, and this term, which has an x. So these two x terms combine, and negative 8 plus 2 would be minus 6. So minus 6x is your new coefficient. And then you're left with one other term, which happens to be a constant term. So if there was a constant term from the first polynomial, you would combine those as well. But this is it. So that is the simplified version of that difference there. All right, so now let's simplify the following. So we're going to subtract x squared plus x from this polynomial, x cubed minus x, and then we'll add x cubed minus 1, and then we'll subtract minus 3x plus 2. So first, let's simplify by distributing in those minuses. So this minus will get distributed, and we'll have minus x squared minus x. These just stay the same. And then this minus will also get distributed. So then we'll have plus 3x minus 2. And then now we look at this and find our like terms. So what do we have? Well, we have a cube term. We have terms with x's, terms with x squareds, and we also have constant terms. So you could kind of go in order until you run out of terms. But we have an x cubed. This is where else do we see x cubed terms? So none here, but we have one here. Are there any more? No. So these two will combine, and the coefficients are 1s here, right? So 1 and a 1. So if you add these, we will have 2 of them, right? So we have 2x cubed. So what's next? Well, we have x terms. So this term has an x. This doesn't. It's an x squared. This has that term has an x. That's a constant term, and this term has an x. So now we will combine these three. So we'll have minus x. So that's a minus 1 coefficient, minus 1, and a 3. So minus 1 plus 3 will give us positive 1. So positive x. And then now just sort of just trying to come up with some other symbols here. Okay, so this is an x squared term. There's no other x squared term. So that would be minus x squared. And then we're left with sort of constant terms. So triangle, triangle. I don't know. I'm just trying to use some symbols to denote the like terms. You could also use colors if that's helpful. But we have minus 1, minus 2, which gives us minus 3. Another thing, so this is an acceptable answer, but a lot of times it is a good idea to sort of write them in sort of a standardized way. And one way you could do that is you could make the powers of x descend. So you could make them go from cubes to the squared term to the constant, all the way down to the constant term. So you see the way that I'm writing it here, it's the same answer. It's just that the powers of x are descending. All right, so now let's suppose that we have two polynomials. So polynomial p of x is 4x to the fourth minus 3x cubed minus 2x squared. So now we're thinking of the polynomial as a function of x. And q of x is this polynomial here. And we want to find this new polynomial. What is q of x minus p of x? All right. So all we do is just substitute these things in. So 2x to the fourth plus 3x cubed plus 4x squared. And then we will subtract 4x to the fourth minus 3x cubed minus 2x squared. So we'll have to distribute that minus. Minus 4x to the fourth plus 3x cubed, right? Minus minus is a plus, and then minus minus is a plus. And then now we just combine like terms. So we have something with 2x to the fourth, any other powers, fourth powers of x. Well, there's one here, and no others. So those two will combine. 2 minus 4 is minus 2. The cubes. So the cubes, let's look for cubes. So that's a cube term, squared term, another cube term. So those will combine and give us what? So 3 plus 3 is 6, so 6x cubed. And then we'll have squared terms. So square, square, and those two will combine. 4 plus 2 is 6. And it doesn't look like there are any other terms, so this would be our answer. Okay, so that is the difference, q of x minus p of x. And we could also consider that a function, right? That actually would be the function q minus p of x, remembering back to our definition of functions. But that's the answer for this problem. All right, so now let's simplify this expression here. So we have x minus 7 times this expression here. So you want to be very careful here, and notice the way that this is written is the 7 is, the negative 7 is the only thing that's being multiplied into this bracket, right? So what you want to do is you want to simplify what's on the inside of the parentheses first, right? So I'm just going to write exactly what we have here, and we'll distribute in the inner parenthesis first. You know, the negative here will get distributed into this inside parentheses. So this will be a negative 2 and then a plus x. Okay, so then x minus 21x and then plus 14 and then minus 7x. Although, you know, an alternative, or you could actually simplify what's on the inside here before you do the simplification. Like the 3x and the x could combine to be a 4x minus 2 before you simplify. You know, we could do those separately if you want. So what would this be? So we have x and then minus 28x plus 14. And these two I can also combine because they're like terms. I combine the minus 21x and the minus 7x, but you also have this extra x here. So we'll add that and we'll have minus 27x plus 14. So that is our answer. You could get that this way as well, right? So if you distributed in this minus here, you would go directly to that step actually, right? Because you'd have a minus 28x and then plus 14. So you'd actually go right to that step. Same thing. But one thing I just want to point out is note this is not, so when I'm saying this, I'm talking about what we're writing right there is not the same as writing this. So if I wrote x minus 7 in parentheses like this, I just want you to notice that when I write the x minus 7 in parentheses, we mean that that whole term would get distributed. Over here, you see that the x is by itself, and only this minus 7 gets distributed. So it's very important to kind of look at situations like this, and when they come up, make sure you realize when you need to include those parentheses and when they are actually included or not. Okay, so you have to be very careful when simplifying and constructing your answers, as well as answering things like this. Just want to point that out. Very common little mistakes can happen here and there. Okay, so now let's suppose that we have the following polynomial. Q of x is x cubed plus x squared plus x minus 1. And we want to find the value of a polynomial at these certain inputs. Okay, so just like what we did with linear functions, in general, you're just going to have the same procedure. So, or functions in general, this is your input, and so you plug that in. That is the rule you use. This is the rule, and so it'll be 5 cubed plus 5 squared plus 5 minus 1. And so we just need to simplify this. So this is 125 plus 25 plus 5 minus 1. So this would be 154, right? So that would be 155, and then minus 1 would be 154. And now let's substitute in the minus 2. So we have minus 2 cubed plus minus 2 squared plus minus 2 minus 1. So minus 2 cubed would be minus 2 minus 2 minus 2. So 2 cubed is 8, but then there's an odd number of minuses, so this is minus 8, right? Minus 2 squared is minus 2 times minus 2, so negative negative is positive, positive 4. And then minus 2, minus 1. So then this would be minus 4 minus 2 is minus 6, minus 7.